I think we'll go ahead and get started. We have some chocolate treats at the end, so I want to make sure we have enough time to get to that. So thanks for joining, everyone. Today is our Region Americas Forever Chocolate Day. You may know that in other offices for Barry Callebaut around the world, in December, after the release of our first Forever Chocolate report, we're doing these Forever Chocolate Days to inform employees. Come on in. No, they can't hear me. To inform employees about the progress we've made, but then also to get external perspective on kind of what we're doing and how we're working with different partners. So today we have some guests from Edward Mark. So we have Mark Edwards, Chris Edwards, and Megan Edwards from Edward Mark, one of our FM customers. They've brought a ton of treats. So we have some here, and after we're done in the auditorium, Angie, who's in the back taking the picture, has set up a whole station in the cafe. Steve, how good are the products?
I'm here for the almonds.
So, some lucky folks in the office have already gotten to try their stuff today, but all of their products are amazing. So please stick around to the end if you can, because there's a lot where this came from in the cafe after we're done. So today, what we're going to do is myself, Peter, and Laura are going to talk a little bit about our results for Forever Chocolate thus far, and then Chris and Mark are going to take us through some information about them as a customer, why sustainability is important for them, some of the choices they've made in terms of cocoa sustainability, and that kind of thing. So with that, maybe I'll turn it over to you, Peter, to get us started.
Okay. Thank you, Sima.
Sure.
So I promise you the products are really good. So I had only one problem. I had one big bag in my house. In my lonely apartment, and I finished it every night, so I had to run a lot to get it off me again. But it's very, very, very good. And thanks for being here. Really, really appreciate it. So just a few words from me. So I hope you're all doing well, all getting ready for Christmas. Hope you have your resolutions already ready for the new year. A short list. So. And I did it already at the Christmas party, but I still want to thank you all for a first good quarter. So luckily my first quarter here at the job was not a disaster, so it's pretty good. And I have to thank you all for that. We have Anton and Victor joining us tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Yeah, on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm very proud to be able to show growth, and that's what we all want. Also happy with our profitability. So thanks for all, not only here, but of course also in the region, with amazing performances in Brazil and Mexico. So fantastic to kick off the year in that way. So so with that, I will say a few words about Forever Chocolate. As you know, I've been very close to the launch of Forever Chocolate a year ago. I have to say we started on that whole journey 2 years ago, and to be honest, we started the whole sustainability journey probably more than 20 years ago. Because as we always share, our company is based on the founder Klaus Jacobs. Therefore, our shares are owned by the Jacobs Foundation, and a lot of the goodness we bring to the world is through that foundation, because 50% of our profit goes into that foundation. But we also felt that at the core of our business we needed to do more, because every year we were publishing a very thick kind of document, social responsibility report, which was full of great initiatives. We trained 100,000 farmers, we had many water wells into communities. We worked with, of course, the communities also to get them onto topics like child labor. But the problem was we still saw reports where they said, hey, the farmers in our supply chain still live in poverty. There's still child labor happening into our kind of supply chain. And we said, also with Anton coming on board, we said, hey, it is just not good enough. It's great we have good stories, it's great we do a lot, but we have to hold ourselves accountable for impact. We have to hold ourselves accountable for a healthy supply chain. And that's, I think, why in Forever Chocolate we said we are going to commit ourselves to very bold kind of standards. Commit ourselves to four objectives. As you all know, And therefore, I'm very, very excited today that we are a year out and we are having the first kind of report on where we have ended up after a year. Luckily, we have a couple of years more, because as you know, our commitments were very bold, so we all got a little bit nervous throughout the company of how the hell are we getting there. And on some of the commitments you will see, we made some progress, but not all the progress we wanted. In some areas, we're just learning. We have to acknowledge we just don't know how to deliver against that objective yet. So we better do all the experiments and put the experiments in place. And in other areas, we have amazing kind of progress. So it's a kind of mixed bag, which Sima will take you through. So these are the 4 commitments. I'm going to repeat them because for those who have been sleeping, it's important to know them by head. And we made them time bound. So all these commitments are for 2025. First, by 2025, we want to eradicate child labor from our supply chain, which of course is the right thing to do. Everyone having kids or having small kids around you, we just can't accept this. So we have to find ways to really get this out of our supply chain. Very much related to the second commitment, because yes, we can point our finger to those farmers. We can say, hey, you cannot let your kids work on the farm, but if they don't earn enough, they don't often have another way. So we definitely have to make sure that they get to income, which is bigger than the income they have today. So we said 500,000 farmers we will get out of poverty. It means in practice that we double their income by 2025. Then the third objective is that, hey, we have seen too much pressure on the rainforest. Ivory Coast, only 12% of the rainforest is left, which of course is just unacceptable. Unfortunately, cocoa played this role, not causing it all, but played this role. So first we said we don't want to source anymore for protected areas, but much more important, with our plan, we are going to grow the forest back. So we are going to reduce the pressure on the rainforest. In that way, create hopefully the replanting and grow some of the forest back. Secondly, we want to be carbon positive. And finally, Laura will also reflect on that because she's working day and night on that. Hey, all the products we source, of course, we want to do that in a price competitive way as our customers demand from us, but we also by 2025 want to have all ingredients sourced in a sustainable way. Which, again, is a big objective, but I think absolutely the right one. So it was launched in November 2016. So you see Antoine there. It was also clearly launched here in the academy because I recognize the table. I think Dave still thought he was very tall because I don't know. He's diving or someone was throwing something at him, but I don't know. But at least there, the whole group was also in this room celebrating the launch of Forever Chocolate, and I think we all felt pretty good about it. And that's, I think, the exciting bit about Forever Chocolate. It's absolutely the right thing to do. It also makes us feel, I think, a little bit more proud of the company we are and the impact that we are having and want to have in the future. Not only internally, it created a lot of engagement, it created a lot of engagement outside. So we have given a lot of interviews. We actually explained our plan, and luckily the journalists, which can sometimes be a little bit critical and come up with critical questions, in general they were very positive about the kind of commitments we went out. And clearly as a company we're seen as leading this discussion up to today. So that's fantastic, of course, also for our name and our kind of reputation as a company. So today is about sharing, and I should not do that. Sima is going to do that. Today is about sharing how far we have come. Why is that so important? Because it's great to shout from the roof the kind of bold commitments you want to do, and then become totally silent. I think a lot of people have done that in the past. I think that's not going to build our credibility. Every year we will report on where we are. We'll be very open on all the great successes, but we will also be very open on where we are lagging behind. Because only in that way, we keep inviting everyone in this room, everyone in our supply chain, even our competitors, to join our movement, to think with us on how we can really deliver. And we think we keep the discussion going on how we can deliver on these commitments, and in the end, make sustainable chocolate the norm. The next step we are going to take, and that's I think a very important one and related to the learning process, is that we said instead of just now again running into a lot of projects and doing a lot of great stuff, we probably first need to understand really how we can have the impact we need for this kind of to deliver against this kind of commitments. So we start with 5 comprehensive pilots. What does comprehensive pilot mean? In 5 countries, so Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Indonesia, and Brazil. We will have a pilot with around 500 farmers, and in that community we will launch all the interventions at once. Because we said, yeah, we can put a water well here, we can put some kids to a better school there, we can train some farmers in better pruning and put better plant material in another site. If we just keep spreading our kind of interventions in that way, we never see what kind of integrated intervention we have to do to really move a whole community into a better space. So we have contracted Wageningen University, who is the expert in the end in the food land, but also has a lot of expertise in this area themselves, to go with us. Because of course it's fantastic that we say we have made a lot of impact. We want them to baseline us, to really in all 5 communities measure the baseline. Then we start to put all these interventions in those into those pilots. And in 2 years' time, Wageningen University again is going to measure whether the progress we promised is really there. And why is that so important? Because the beauty is, of course, these interventions are very expensive, requires a lot of capital. And although we as a company are fully into this, we cannot carry that all ourselves. If we really want to become a movement, invite banks, invite other companies. We need to show that we really can have our impact, that we have a replicable kind of model, which if we go with this set of interventions into community, we have this kind of positive impact. And if we can prove that, there's a lot of people who want to move, and a lot of people who want to support. And that's the reassuring thing. So if in 2-3 years' time, we have really the proof that we can have this impact, I'm absolutely sure there's billions in the capital market who will go with us to support behind it. And that's the intent of the comprehensive pilots, where we are learning, where we are proving that what we think will make a difference is really working. And with that, we are on the journey to deliver against our objectives. And with that, I give it.
Thanks, Peter. So just to go into each of those 4 goals that Peter mentioned a little more specifically about, obviously now we've identified and established what are the goals, but how have we measured up 1 year in. So on the first goal of lifting 500,000 farmers out of poverty, the real key enabler, I would say, in being able to do that, but being able to track that, is mapping of the farmers that we're working with. So some of you have probably heard about a tool called Kachile, which is a mobile app, and basically our commercial team on the ground who's already buying cocoa from these farmers is able to digitally identify if the farmer has a code like a social security number, says this is farmer 1234, this is his name, this is how many children he has, this is what his farm looks like, this is what else he's growing on his farm besides cocoa. And the goal also is to GPS map all of these farms. So really moving to digital data is a big component of what we're doing, and that's why we're focusing on this here. But in terms of one other thing I want to mention is, you know, Peter touched on this a little bit, the partnerships that we have in Forever Chocolate. So none of this is possible by Barry Callebaut alone. Just to highlight a few of them, the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank, we've set up a risk-sharing facility with them to be able to loan farmers credit. A lot of farmers, or no farmers, really have bank accounts or savings accounts. So this is a way we can provide farmers credit so that they can invest in their farms. Another partnership that we have is jointly funding cocoa farming education programs in partnership with the Jacobs Foundation, who, as many of you know, their focus is on education for at-risk communities across the world. And so we found that synergy in partnering to help build up the cocoa education among young adults in cocoa growing areas. So that's just to highlight a few of those partnerships. But in terms of the progress, what we've actually accomplished in 2016-17, we've mapped 90,000 farmers. So this is not actually the GPS farming, but this is survey data. So this is who is the farmer, where's their farm generally, what are they growing, all of those things. It's important, though, over time that we increase the number of farms that we have that GPS data for, especially in relation to our Thriving Nature goals around carbon and forest positive. The goal is to overlap a map of the rainforest with a map of farms and be able to cross-reference them to say where are farmers growing cocoa where they shouldn't, and what areas are safe to grow cocoa in. But that being said, we've also worked with approximately 157,000 cocoa farmers on good agricultural practices training. So this is through the Horizons program, but also through certification programs like Rainforest Alliance, like UTZ. We've given out about 7.5 million Swiss franc in Cocoa Horizons premiums to farmer groups, either through services or direct premiums to farmers. And the main thing I want to highlight here is we've provided almost 6,000 cocoa farmers with what we call productivity packages. So these are yield enhancement tools that they can use to better grow their cocoa. And with those almost 6,000 farmers, we saw over a 20% increase in their productivity just for this past year. So the point there would be, we know that there is more that farmers can do to increase their productivity. Yes, that's only part of the puzzle. They also need to diversify their farms and diversify their income. But we feel very strongly that this is good indication that where we put forth the effort to improve productivity with the farmers that we work with directly, it is achievable. And another important point I want to note is that we've replanted almost 200 hectares of cocoa. So the goal for this next year is to replant almost 1,000 hectares. So obviously a big increase. For those of you who know a little bit about the state of the cocoa industry, a big part of what needs to happen is replanting, but you of course can't go to a farmer and say, hey, replant your entire farm today. So it is a gradual process, but a big part of our effort will be also replanting. Then on the second goal around child labor, so I think it's important to identify what is child labor. We're using the International Labor Organization's definitions of worst forms of child labor. So this is things like carrying heavy loads, working with pesticides, working with machetes. As Peter said, things that you would never want any child to do. Often child labor is a circumstance of poverty. And so focusing on the income of farmers is important, because if farmers have better income, they can hire the right labor. They can invest in their farms to increase productivity and reduce labor overall. But in terms of, these are really the underlying causes around child labor. So poverty alleviation is really the key. Finding different income sources for women in the community. We know, sorry to say it, guys, that if you invest in the women in the community, you invest in the whole community. Not necessarily always the case on the flip side, but that's okay. Another big component is child labor awareness. So culturally speaking, this is something that is the norm for these cultures, is the norm for these societies. Changing culture is not something you do overnight. So that's a big part of it, but it's only one piece. And then access to quality education. So in a lot of these communities, there's just a lack of education resources. So that's a big component as well. Here are some of the partnerships that we've embarked on in terms of trying to meet this goal around child labor, or removing child labor from our supply chain. So with the International Cocoa Initiative, we've launched a pilot for child labor monitoring and remediation. Obviously, a lot of work being done through the Cocoa Horizons Foundation. We've partnered with a single customer, Kim's Chocolates, who in Tanzania specifically, we're working to bring education to 65,000 primary age school children in cocoa growing communities in Tanzania. So there are a lot of different ways in which we can, ways that we can and have to tackle this problem, because it's definitely multifaceted. Then in terms of our progress this far, or progress so far this year, we've trained over 20,000 farmers in child labor awareness. As I mentioned, we are partnering with Kim's Chocolates to bring education to 65,000 children in Tanzania. We've distributed almost 3,000 school kits, so this is basic supplies for children to go to school. And what we found is that 3.2% of the, I guess it's about 300 farmer groups that we supply from directly have systems in place for child labor monitoring and remediation. So these are systems where they can validate if there's child labor going on in the farming organization and have a system in place to help alleviate that. Obviously, it's a very small percentage. The goal is that over time, the number of farm organizations that we work with that have this in place grows. Those that we did measure for or check that have this program, there were almost 250 cases of child labor, or worse forms of child labor found in these cocoa communities. What I will say is that we, as the number of farmer groups goes up that has these systems in place, we will likely find more cases of child labor. But that really is the first step, is finding these cases, identifying them, and then working with the different communities to root them out. So this is just a snapshot of where we are thus far in relation to this goal. The third goal is around thriving nature, so becoming carbon and forest positive. One big piece that I want to highlight here is around the Cocoa and Forest Initiative. So you might have seen some news on BCNet or in the industry about our participation in this. It's a really amazing achievement for the cocoa industry. So 12 of the world's top chocolate and cocoa producers have committed to ending deforestation in the cocoa supply chain. So this really means what you see here. So going forward, no conversion of protected lands for cocoa growing, stopping to source cocoa from protected forests, action plan to remove cocoa from protected lands, and also really importantly, an action plan to determine how to approach the livelihood of those people who are working on those farms currently. So obviously nobody wants cocoa to be grown in protected lands, but what do you do with the people who are living in those places? How do they maintain a livelihood if you're moving them out of protected lands? So it's not only about removing cocoa from protected rainforests so that we can keep our rainforests, but it's also about understanding that this also is a social issue, and there has to be elements of that built into any sort of long-term plan to alleviate the issue. This is just a snapshot of our overall organizational carbon footprint. So for those of you in different areas, it might be interesting to see. Transportation is a big component of it. Factories are a smaller percentage. Some of our dairy ingredients do play a big part in our carbon footprint. But the major piece is the land use change. So this is really us taking on the ownership of land that's been converted from forest or rainforest to cocoa land. It's important to note because it is the biggest part of our carbon footprint, and it's important to note because it is not exactly within our direct sourcing, I guess, framework that we're taking this on. So this is outside of our direct sourcing network. It's taking that backpack of history on our backs, if you will, and saying that we're accountable for this land being changed from forest or rainforest to cocoa farming. So then our goals are our actions that we've done this past year. Our CO2 intensity per ton is at 4.32 tons per ton of product. This is down from last year from 4.4. As far as the data on our raw materials and their impact on carbon and our forest goals, what we're doing now is finalizing the supplier codes of conduct and basically mapping our non-cocoa supply to say which items or which raw materials are most at risk or make us most at risk. So we'll have a lot more information next year on kind of what that carbon and forest positive goal looks like in terms of not only our cocoa supply chain, but also our wider raw material supply chain. And with that, I'll turn it over to Laura to walk us through our last goal, and then we'll turn things over to our guest from Edwin Mark.
Okay, so of course, our fourth and one of our most important pillars, by 2025, 100% sustainable ingredients. And whenever I share this with people, usually the question is, what do you mean by sustainable ingredients? And it does get defined differently for each raw material that's in our supply chain. But most importantly, when you're thinking sustainability, it's always a three-pillar approach. You got to have the economics. It has to be profitable for whatever farmer is working on that material to continue supporting their livelihood, their family's livelihood. There has to be a social element. So whether that's labor rights, child labor, the social part has to be there. And finally, the environmental side. So addressing, our third pillar around thriving nature. Those three elements have to be part of any sustainable ingredient. And it's just how exactly that manifests per ingredient differs. So over the last year, we've done a lot. Right in the middle, you see there, 36% of our cocoa is now sourced sustainably. And again, when we say sourced sustainably, in this case, it means our Cocoa Horizons program, or that can mean RFA, Rainforest Alliance, UTZ, et cetera. So certification programs that exist that ensure you are adhering to those 3 principles of sustainability. We've also worked with our palm oil suppliers to map out 98% of the volume of palm oil that's in our supply chain. So just like in cocoa, you're never going to know if deforestation is happening within your supply chain unless you know where that palm oil is coming from. So it was one of our big initiatives this year to engage with our suppliers, tell them we're watching, and then help work with them if there are cases of deforestation to ensure that that is not appearing in our supply chain. 90% of our carton or corrugate sourcing is sustainable globally. So there are certification standards. There are ways to sustainably manage forests. And it's important to us that for any of the corrugate we're using in our supply chain, that sustainably managed forests are what's feeding into that packaging. This year, we've launched a dairy sustainability pilot where a lot of ingredients, whether we're talking sugar, palm oil, there are global standards that define sustainability that doesn't quite exist in dairy. So we took it upon ourselves to develop one with another key customer. So we've engaged the help of FAI. It's a consultancy out of the UK. And we've defined what 15 principles are important for dairy being sustainable. So that includes things like animal welfare, so taking proper care of your cows. That includes the economic side, and that includes the environmental side as well. As Seema mentioned, a big portion of our environmental footprint actually comes from dairy. So cows just, by their very nature, have a large impact on the environment. So really working with our dairy suppliers to talk about these principles and identify ways to move forward in terms of making that supply chain more sustainable. And so we have 4 suppliers in Europe piloting this program with us. Again, the concept of a pilot, kind of really digging in, figuring out how things work in order to then scale change most effectively. We have a vanilla project in Madagascar. So almost all of the world's vanilla is coming from Madagascar, including most of ours. And we've partnered with one of our vanilla suppliers to work with farmers on the ground. And the supply chain challenges with vanilla look a lot like cocoa. So working with them on increasing their yields. And we're also working with them on intercropping methods for actually growing cocoa, as cocoa can be grown in Madagascar. So we're bringing something to the table that we have some expertise on. And finally, we have established 4 different memberships or collaborations. One of them being one that's very applicable for our region is Bonsucro. It's a sustainable cane sugar platform. So 90% of the sugar in the Americas comes from sugar cane. And Bonsucro is really the global leader in terms of talking about and certifying cane sugar. So we'll see that grow in terms of its importance in our region this year and going forward. Additionally, in terms of action and partnerships, the Choco Suisse, which is the basically like the NCA, the Swiss Chocolatiers Association, has committed to 80% sustainable cocoa by 2025, largely led by Barry Callebaut. Similar initiatives exist in the Netherlands and Germany, and we're hoping to drive some of those in Belgium and France, maybe one day the US, I don't know. So overall, our progress. And we joined Bonsucro, we joined POIG, which is a palm oil innovation group looking at making that supply chain more sustainable. Again, 36% of our cocoa ingredients are now sourced sustainably, and 30% of our non-cocoa ingredients, sugar, dairy, vanilla. So collectively, that's 33% of our supply chain. So Forever Chocolate, it's been a year. We've made a lot of progress, which we should be very, very proud of. But we do have a long way to go. We're really excited for everyone to go on the journey with us, especially key customers such as yourselves.
Thanks, Laura. So with that, just wanted to give you all a short overview of kind of where we've come for the past year, but now to the really, really exciting part. So we have some guests here from Edward Mark Brands.
one of my favorite customers. I can say that because it's true. Probably because they took Cocoa Horizons on pack this year, and their products are really amazing tasting, and we're just really lucky to have them here today to kind of give that outside in perspective on sustainability. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and Mark to kind of take us over the next piece.
Thank you for having us. Hey guys, I'm Chris Edwards. It's nice to meet you. Mark's gonna jump up in a second. I mean, how we are is I'm the guy who sells it. Mark's the guy who makes it. So that's how we divide it up. I mean, I figure out how to spend money. He figures out how to save money. This is like how we do it. He flew here on Southwest. I flew here on American. That's how we do it. We were laughing about that earlier. That's exactly what happened, actually. I'm not even making that up. But we're a family business. So we're 103 years, going on our 104th year. May will be our 104th anniversary in the chocolate business. Our great-grandparents started the company. They came from Greece, and they went right to Pittsburgh at the turn of the century when the Industrial Revolution was booming, and they felt like there was a lot of prosperity in America. And going to Pittsburgh, they built this little chocolate shop in one of the most popular neighborhoods, and now it's still very, very popular in the city of Pittsburgh, if you've ever been. Thank you very much. So again, fourth generation, we really take pride in how we have become this innovation company over the last few years. What we've done, we have this rich history in the chocolate business, but I always tell people that we're a 100-year-old startup, because when we created Snappers, and this was about 5 years ago, we created Snappers. We started with the milk chocolate, and these are the minis. So these are more snackable version. It's a pretzel turtle, basically, is what we created. And not knowing just kind of liking the ingredients and putting it together. And we happened to get a call from Costco at the same time, and Costco called us to come and meet with them. And we went into the Northeast and we presented the product. The buyer at the time, it was her first meeting. Her name is Rachel Moyer. It was her first meeting as the new candy buyer, and in the Northeast, and she approved us on the spot. And so we had how many pounds of chocolate were we going through, Mark?
A good day was 400 pounds. Before that, now we can do about 90,000.
90,000 pounds a day. So we went from about 400 pounds to 90,000 pounds a day. So as you can tell,
we didn't tell her that we didn't make like a truckload of
we didn't tell her. We kind of kept that quiet. And so after we left, we presented this product. She approved it on the spot. Went to her boss. She tried them. She scooped up the samples and left the room. Came back and said, "You're approved for 81 clubs in the Northeast. And let's walk before we run. We'll do 19 clubs, and then we'll see how you guys do. And then we'll just keep going with it if it does well." So we knew we had to hit hurdle after hurdle to make this successful. So that was where our entire life changed. That was when, at that moment, we knew this was like this was going to transform not only our company, but where we were going with everything. And here we are 5 years later, and we're talking with you guys about sustainability. We have multiple products with Costco. I present, these are the ones that are actually just in the Midwest right now. So there's products, these products are carried, every one is pretty much, not except having the Snappers on at the same time. We have 5 products in the Midwest on the floor at the same time right now. And we have about 9 or 10 products that we sell within Costco. We sell now in 12 different countries and about 40,000 retailers in the United States. So it started at Costco, then we went to Target and all the regional grocery players and Jewel and Walgreens and CVS and the distribution. And we had to build this team, and we had to figure out over time how to make this and how to keep growing so fast. And and that was the challenging part of scaling up operations and finding multiple co-packers to make the product. And it is, as some of your team will attest, is Christy.
She's still here.
To Christy, who takes good care of us. We'll call her out of the blue and say, "Hey, I need another 1.1 million pounds of white," and she has a meltdown, and then decides, "Okay, and I need it by March." So anyway, so you guys have been so good with us, and we try to really we have a very, we're in a tough position because we're selling to Costco, right? They're an item business and they change consistently and they don't have these long forecasts like they do in grocery. So, but now as we're building our grocery business, we will have more of a, we'll have more stability in terms of how we're ordering, but we always pride ourselves in being able to turn on a dime and make sure that we are very nimble and innovative and all of these things that the big companies can't do. And that's why we've become more successful over the last few years.
So you guys can try some of these here, and I'll just tell you a little bit about the products really quickly. The Snappers got us our start, our restart, I should say, into chocolate, really got into Costco and into retail. We then have the coconut almonds, was kind of took us outside of being this one-hit wonder of, making a product. Coconut almonds have now sold, this year will sell more than Snappers have at Costco and as we go into retail. So coconut almonds will be our #1 item in 2018. The other items we're really calling this a pillar of the brand is caramel medallions, kind of like how you think of a Ghirardelli Square or others. Medallions are a great item for us. We've reinvented the salted caramel to take it to mass market. So it was a really simple format change. What we were doing, actually, it was a mistake to begin with. The pretzel guy forgot to turn on the pretzel feeder when he was making Snappers, and the caramel deposited it directly onto the belt and made these beautiful, thin, round, very thin caramels. And we just made them exactly like Snappers. So if you can tell, they're made exactly the same, but here we are about 1.5 years later, 2 years later, and they're in a bag, they're on the floor of Costco, and they're selling like crazy. They're doing very, very well. So as you can tell, mistakes turn into really exciting products for us, and we pride ourselves. And then we have our first bark. It's a holiday bark. It's hot chocolate bark. It tastes just like hot chocolate because what we do, instead of a soft marshmallow, we put a crispy marshmallow like you get out of the Swiss Miss pack, kind of like that. So it tastes just like hot chocolate. It makes it, and we put it with some berry Haribo milk chocolate, and it tastes great. So you guys will have to try that and let us know what you think. Is this, how do I switch this? Which one?
Just the forward, the right.
This one?
Yep.
So we put some slides together. Here's pictures of our heritage. And we have my great-grandfather, our great-grandfather, and our uncle. And as you can see, there's a big milkshake in front of him. So something else about our business is that, my sister, she was in college, and, we had come back about, a few years ago to come back into the family business. We all had their careers, and we decided to come back into the family business. And she, at the time, when she was in college, she had this idea for what we call the Milkshake Factory. The Milkshake Factory we had a retail store with chocolate in it, and it was really high sales in the winter months, no sales in the summer. So it said, let's bring in ice cream. And we came up with the idea of the Milkshake Factory. The Milkshake Factory is 55 flavors of milkshakes. It's become the most popular ice cream store in the city of Pittsburgh. We now have 2 locations, and we'll have a big announcement in January. So we'll be able to tell you guys about what the plans are for the Milkshake Factory. But that's our 3rd brand. So we have Edward Snappers, we have Edward Mark Chocolatier, and now we have the Milkshake Factory, which is brick and mortar. You guys, when it comes to Chicago, you guys are gonna love it.
I can firsthand attest the Milkshake Factory is life-changing.
It's a lot of fun. So anyway, that's where the milkshakes are a part of our family too. As you can see, this was our dad on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He was making taffy when he was 28 years old. So he was very young and he was up there. And then mom here she's still there. She's making some chocolate pops out of our grandfather's original factory, which is what we still have up and running, and that's what supplies the Milkshake Factory. So we make everybody who starts at our company, we make them go work on the line at Granddad's original factory because they work with all the ladies who worked for us for like 30 years. And it's the best. They love it. They buy right into the culture at that moment. So it's a great thing that we're able to do. And then of course there's Mark. You'll see Mark with my dad on there. That's me with some, probably some caramel that was mixed up. And then there's us today at the Milkshake Factory. So previous to this, we all worked in the White House. So I ran all the media operations at the White House, and I traveled around the world to 76 countries. We flew on Air Force One every day. Mark met his wife, Megan, at the White House too. She was there as well. So we had these really great careers. We didn't know what we were going to do afterwards. We thought we were going to, I was going to go work for Goldman Sachs or do something like up in New York, or, and here I am, a chocolatier back in Pittsburgh. So never thought I'd be back in the city. But this is our 2nd career. We're on our 2nd career, and what a way to do. I just feel like we're having the time of our lives. We're really enjoying it, following what we're passionate about. And here's some of the early years too, when we say before we really got started, there I am under there with President Bush. We work directly for George W. Bush, but we're very close. We're bipartisan in our family. So we like everybody and we get along. Clintons, Bidens, Nancy Pelosi, George Bush, Sarah Palin, everybody around. So anyway, and there we are with Hoda and Kathie Lee. We go on Today's Show and we make milkshakes and we'll do a sibling rivalry on Good Morning America. So we have a lot of fun with the business as well. So some of our products, again, the box chocolates are our gourmet chocolate line, and then we have the Snappers, which is our snackable line, as you see, and now we have the premium chocolates under Edward Mark, so a retail premium brand, which will be in the bags here as well. And then the Milkshake Factory, that's a peppermint fudge. That's the one for the Milkshake Factory for the season right now. So that's what we have out. It's really good. We are doing some demos inside the Milkshake Factory, and then just to talk about, just to tell you guys this is our core values at Edward Mark. We call it EPIC. It's excellence, passion, positive influence, integrity, community. And all of this kind of embodies what our partnership with Cocoa Horizons and Barry Callebaut. And this is kind of interwoven in our entire culture and our business. Being a family business and maintaining that family business feel as we continue to grow. We're gonna hire another 180 people next year in 2018. It's a lot of change at once, it's a lot of growth, but we try to maintain that really, that culture of family and following these values, and that plays into our partnership with Cocoa Horizons and Barry Callebaut and what you guys have done. So, and when I go out to sales calls, I talk a lot about it, and I will tell you, just last week I went up to Ahold Stop and Shop and and met with them about our products, and they asked specifically, they said, well, what do you mean by, why do you have this on your path? Why do you have Cocoa Horizons on your path? Because they want to know, because they said and when I started talking about it, and I hit my bullet points of, just like making it real and understanding this isn't about, these aren't first world problems. These are problems where farmers are living off of 90 cents a day. It's about poverty. It's not about organic or health. It's about people living in severe poverty and not having the money to go buy a machete, don't having wheelbarrows to move their product or their crops when they cut them down. I mean, those are the types of things, when you start to talk about that in these meetings, the buyers and everybody else really, really start to, it makes it real for them, and they start to understand why this is important, and these initiatives that we're doing as an entire company and as a group are so important to the industry. And they even say, the buyer told me, I probably talked about it, I gave her a better education on sustainability than anybody that's ever come in there, even from the big companies, in terms of they don't know, the salesmen that go in there, they don't know why their companies are doing this. They're not trained properly on this. So we need to obviously be a leader in this and get out there and be able to train the people that are talking about it and have them be educated enough to walk into a meeting and explain why this is so important. So then the retailers and the people who are going to these retailers, so they're also jumping on board. That's really important as well. You need the Publix of the world. You need H-E-B. You need Ahold. You need Meijer up in Michigan. You need all of these people to get on board with our programs, and that's something that's very important to us. So we will be out there on a regular basis talking about this. And so we, of course, appreciate the support from SEMA and Nico and everything else that, they came by. It only took one meeting, I said, and now it's lit a fire under us to get more involved and make sure that we're able to get this message out as much as possible. So I'll turn it over to Mark. And did I miss anything, Mark?
No, it took me, I wanted to jump up every 5 seconds and say something.
I know, exactly. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
I said, now's your
Yeah,
turn.
yeah, go sit down. Go sit down. Okay. So we have two type A personalities in the family that always want to be the center of attention. It's hard. So when we go into Costco, our pictures are on the back of the bag, and I always go around. I say, look how good looking that guy is. Not that one, the other one. And so it's it's fun to work with your family. It's you saw those pictures. There's not very many people that get to experience this and get to be able to share this life with the family that they grew up with, and we pretend really well. And so I think that there's one thing on here that there's, a lot of companies have core values, but I feel like we in our culture put so much emphasis on on our core values that it really becomes something special to everyone, and something that they really believe, from people that are working the production lines to people on leadership. And it's an amazing thing that we're one team, right? We're one team that really believes that not one person's better than anybody else in the company. And that's what I feel like when people come in, they stay a long time, because it's not about, they're in it for something much bigger than themselves, and they realize when they get there. And I feel like that's kind of the feeling at Barry Callebaut too, so that we got that, and it feels really good to work with people that you like to work with, that share that are aligned in that same way. And I think in this this positive influence and this passion, the two P's that are on here, are really important for us in moving forward. Where when we go to the this next question is, why sustainability? First of all, there's not many people that understand what sustainability really means. I think that there's less and less people, as I've been becoming more and more in tune with what's going on. I didn't even know what it was, and until I started asking that question. I think that's what we really need to teach people, right? We really need to teach people why are we doing what we're doing, and that sustainability aspect is extremely important to get people to understand what we're all trying to do here, because it's not just about feeling better about buying a product that has this logo on it, because nobody really knows what that logo is, right? So it's our job to tell the world that, and it's our job to, and even if we don't tell the world that, it's our job to fix it, right? We have the power to change the world. One person, one creative idea has the power to change the world, and that's not what everybody believes, but it's true. It's true that every single time you have a creative thought, you can actually do something that touches another person's life. Look at this quote that Albert Schweitzer said: "Sometimes our light goes out, but is blown into instant flame by an encounter with another human being." I feel like that's what we're facing with this sustainability function. The sustainability problem is that we are in an industry that's all about fun, that's all about love, that's all about passion, that's all about that we make products that make everybody happy, except for the farmers in a lot of places. And we have a duty to them to be able to change this, and to be able to follow that quote right there. So we see at Edward Mark, we always talk about our major, why we're doing what we're doing. Always bigger than us. Life is about human connection, right? We have the opportunity to touch 50 million lives with just what we do. Actually, way more than that. But when we're talking Ivory Coast and Ghana, we're talking 50 million people. That's 1/6 the population of the United States, right? So we have if we don't do it, we have a humanitarian crisis on our hands. So we have the ability to with the choices that we make today, to change the world from this, or change this region specifically. But if we look at the three main things that are going on: eliminate poverty, end child labor, reverse deforestation. Okay, and actually, everything gets better if we eliminate poverty, right? So the other two are symptoms of poverty. Because when you're in survival mode, you don't care about deforestation. You don't care about that you need your children to work on the farm. They don't, for the most part, they don't want their kids to work on their farm. They want them to go to school. But when there's no ability to do any other way except survive, they go to work. So it's that poverty issue. We have to be able to address that poverty issue, and with lots of conversations with Nico from Barry Callebaut, from other major leaders in the other large chocolate companies in the world, we have framework of a plan that we can put in place that will springboard off of the Cocoa Horizons initiatives. That's the best part, is that we sit here and we look at all the knowledge and all the information that has been gathered by Barry Callebaut and say, okay, how are we inspired to do something even bigger, do something better, even faster? I mean, if you look at these products, none of these products existed 5 years ago. And this product right here, Snappers, took 4 months from idea to it hit the shelf. There's no other companies that do that. It's since 2 years in development. We do things very quickly, and we want to be able to be a part of the Cocoa Horizons initiative. The purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others. If we embody that, we can fix this, right? Everybody looks at this problem and says, it's a huge undertaking. But that's where it starts, right there. That gives you the inspiration. Edward Mark has the opportunity to create real change. So we are small in the grand scheme of the chocolate industry. So even though we have products that we sell at volume in mass market, we probably only buy about 600 to 700 metric tons of beans. There's 4.2 million metric tons grown. So we're small, but we have the ability, or at least we see that we have the ability, to be able to fix the problem. And that's the first step, is basically looking at it and saying, this isn't bigger than we can, this isn't bigger than us. We can do it. So it's important that we all buy in to this. We are 100% family owned. That means we move fast. 4 months to get something from idea to on the shelf at Costco. And we never did anything like that before. We've never done anything like this before. But we feel like it's the same lessons that we learned here, we can move into here. Commitment to positive influence. 100% commitment to positive influence. Elevating others. One of the major tenets in our company is that we build people up, we don't tear them down. I don't care who it is. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're tasked to clean the bathrooms or you're on the executive team making decisions. You build people up no matter what. And we are 100% innovation driven. We are an innovation company first. We're a chocolate company second. And that's how we feel like we could be extremely impactful in this region, to be able to bring innovative ideas very quickly to the table. One of the most important things that, if you don't get anything out of today, this is it right here. Attract investment, not just charity. You can't fix a problem with charity, right? We have to be able to offer a return to investment, just as Peter talked about billions in the capital market sitting there waiting to be put to work. And it's our job to be able to make sure that they get that return on investment so we can industrialize a region and pull everybody out of poverty and fix the region once and for all. Charity dollars doesn't do it. It's great to be able to be a part of that aspect, but investment is the answer. So why do we pick, out of all the other sustainability initiatives, why do we pick Cocoa Horizons? Number one, we like you guys. I think that goes, except Jerry. But for the most part,
Usually it takes people a long time to come back.
Not only DC, Jerry. So
It's where we all agree.
and I think that's very important, is that you have to like who you're working with, right? And I think that goes a long way about being real. And but I feel like we're aligned. I feel like we're aligned with where we're going here. And we might have different visions on how to get there, but we're aligned. We're moving in the right direction. And I think the biggest thing is Barry Callebaut's reputation of service, quality, and value, right? And we've experienced that firsthand. And that's because of everybody in this room here and everybody else in the company, is that the other chocolate companies aren't doing this, right? That service, which I put first, is really difficult to make sure that you hit every single time. And the quality has to be high, value has to be high, right? And so we always have to offer that really great quality at a really great price, or you don't get anything, nobody gets to eat any of it, right? And so that's the most important part. But specifically for Cocoa Horizons, we have the highest percentage going to the farmers. And that was what was important to us, is that, you go to some of these other organizations that I'm not gonna name, but they might have 3% going to the farmers. We're like, where's your 97% going? And just go telling everybody about what they're doing. And it's like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about, until we can figure out how to get a return on the investment of that, but to be able to drive investment dollars to that region, we're gonna keep giving as much as we possibly can to the farmers. And that's the most important part. Passion, knowledge, sustainability team. I wish Nico was here today, because I want to at least tell him how thankful I am about all the conversations him and I have had over these last couple of months, and just getting downloading all that information. I mean, 25 years of experience is you can't, that's unmatched, right? And so you guys have someone special in Nico.
I will send you a text now.
Yeah, perfect. The women's initiatives. That's something that's very important to us, because we have been a woman-owned business for 103 years now. So my great-grandmother started the business, went to grandmother, went to mother, and now we're still, even though Chris and I, we have a smaller percentage of the women in our family, so we're still a woman-owned business, and that's something that we have always had a place in our heart on. And the fact that we see them as women in West Africa as an extremely important factor in solving this problem, right? I think everybody's kind of in agreement that that's important, and it's very important to us. And then you guys see this as more than a certification, right? You don't just slap a certification on it that says, okay, now everybody's gonna feel good about it, right? We're gonna actually find a solution. That commitment to an actual solution, and long-term solution, not just something that's going to appease the people that are the squeaky wheels. Something that actually gets the job done once and for all, and puts the flag in the ground that region of the world is going to be solid for generations to come. So we just want to thank you guys. Everyone in this room plays a part, and it's so much bigger than everybody in this room, right? Any individual, myself, Chris, Jerry, it's much bigger than anybody in this room. And we want to thank you guys for coming to work every day, for putting that effort forward, making sure that you play that part in fixing something that's much bigger than any single one of you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So thanks, Chris and Mark, for sharing your story of your company and your perspective and your commitment to sustainability. We really appreciate it. We're going to move all this into the cafe and have a little treat, a little Monday treat. But before we do that, we have time for a couple questions if there are any from the group. No, everybody just wants to eat and snap. Okay, understood. Well, thanks.
Let me ask.
Okay,
so
sure.
You came with Costco. Have you found one retailer easier to work with than another? Is Costco your favorite?
Costco is my favorite.
We could only work with Costco.
That would be better, yes. No, Costco is because Costco has, of all the retailers we work with, I would say they're the most organized. They know who they are, and they don't change. So they know what works for them and the member, and they think about the member first, and that's what's really important. Because other retailers, they think about their, maybe it's their bottom line, or maybe it's they want to figure out, like, it's more about the financial side of it, and they don't think about the customer as much as Costco thinks about the member. When you have a membership club like that, people pay to have that membership as many as you do. It's really important that they always put the member first. They push us, give people the best value, have the best quality for the best value, but they turn around and are just as loyal to us as we are to them, and they pay in 10 days. They've never missed it. How many years? 5 years. They've never missed a payment in 10 days. I mean, it's that kind of stuff when you're chasing Target for 90-day terms, or other retailers who are like, I'm out of all this cost for this, and as a small business, it doesn't work. So that's why I always say if small businesses can learn about how to work with Costco and figure out how to do it, you will go very far because Costco is just as good to you as you are to them. So I would say Costco for all the reasons. I mean, I go out there a lot and talk about this stuff and how good Costco is, and it's the truth. It's not just because we do business with them. It's they help build our business and they did it for a reason. And we were able to build with them for a reason. The other retailers, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have been able to. They're a lot harder and more complicated, and they ask for a lot more. They're always sending the marketing funds, every time all the temporary price reductions, all the TPRs, and everything that's involved is a lot more complicated. Costco, there's programs that work. They bring in full trucks. The other retailers order in pallets. When we started working at Costco, we were very, they were ordering full trucks, and then we went to our first grocery account. They said, well, we'll have one pallet. And we were like, we didn't have to pay for that. What are you talking about? So to answer your question, by far Costco is my favorite, but there's reasons.
Has one retailer or another embraced the sustainability message?
They're one of the, definitely Costco is right there with the sustainability because they're so big, they have to be. But Ahold is probably the number one that we work with and they have giant Vandover, giant Carlisle, Stop and Shop, and they have a few other banners. But I would say they put the most emphasis on being a women-owned business and being sustainable. So if you guys, if you know of other, I would say of all the retailers we work with, they're the best.
Just one question. So, of course, we are incredibly proud to work with you guys and to have this kind of partnership. Is there anything we can do better? So anything we have to improve in?
I guess it's fire me. I didn't know we were having an intervention.
I mean, I would say, from a supply standpoint, I mean, you guys have done such a good job. It's tough for us. Even we never would complain about it because you guys have always jumped for hoops to get us what we need, and that's what Mark talked about. Mark talked about the partnership in our meeting earlier, making sure that we have that partnership with you guys. That we know we're pressured by Costco and other retailers, and I know we're putting pressure on you guys and Christy. So she did it. But honestly, I think as we go through, we're going to learn more about this. Mark's going to Africa in April on the trip. Oh, excuse me. What did I say?
April. It's okay.
I meant January. The third week of January, I think it is. And he's going to be. It's also a fact-finding mission for us, and it's really helpful to if we could just pick your brains and use your knowledge, as Mark said, over the last 25 years and what you guys have, what Eco has done and what you guys are doing now. It's really helpful. It makes us stronger if you guys can download that information to us, and then we can kind of take it and figure out how it applies and how I can get out and sell it to the world, and how I can get out and talk about this and be out there with the retailers and then getting the word out that we do have to do something in the industry.
And I think that really Peter, you mentioned being bold before, taking bold steps. I think we can be bolder, right? I think being a smaller company that we don't have as big of many moving parts, and we can make decisions. I think that it allows us to be that arm that allows us to move faster and move in bolder actions. And so I think that I would ask you to use us for that, right? And I think that is one of the major things that we see that our strength is moving forward, is that speed that we can use.
Yeah.
Do you have a view on what's the share of your products you sold on e-commerce and how that's growing?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about grocery delivery, honestly, because more people are, through e-commerce. When you say e-commerce, it's actually grocery delivery is where the growth is. When you're looking at what Amazon has disrupted by buying Whole Foods and kind of disrupted the space, and what you're going to see them do. As an example, my sister, Megan, others, they have young children at home. People are not able to get to the grocery store, and that's kind of the future of where the industry is going in terms of food.
people want it delivered to their house. So I'd say grocery delivery is probably the number one thing that's talked about.
And nobody wants to pay for climate control freight, right? You don't wanna ship chocolate in hot weather and get a melted product. And so so getting it to as close as you can to the final user and then taking it the rest of the way, and that it is the only really economic way of doing it, right? You don't wanna have to ship a whole bunch of product because you have to pay for the insulated case, right? And so that's the future.
Do you see a lot of grocery being shipped like Instacart and things like that?
Yeah, so Instacart is one of them, but we're gonna be doing more in 2018 and 2019 on that, and we're also gonna be talking more. I mean, right now, we sell mostly internationally through Costco, but we are taking on some retailers overseas, and we'll be focusing on that more in 2019 as well. But for domestic, I mean, to really to grow our business, what we need to do is have more facings on the shelf. So go from 1 bag to 2 bags, 2 bags to 4 bags, wherever that is, so we keep growing that way, and then we're able to, compete in what we would say is e-commerce, but it's more grocery delivery as well. I think that's the number one thing that we have.
And Amazon and Prime Now is really the leader. Is what we see is that there's 26, warehouses or operations that serve 26 different regions around the U.S. and they're only going to build more, right? And so
Yeah.
Prime Now, which is 2-hour delivery, is really the best, is the leader in that, even with Instacart, but it's just the cost savings of Amazon compared to everybody else. We partner with Amazon, as many places we could possibly do it, and there's a huge amount of places to do that. But really, Prime Now is the winner.
And Costco is also talking about grocery delivery. They talked about it at their annual supplier day, which is they have it's once a year. They have everybody coming from all over the world, all their suppliers, and they really made a big emphasis on grocery delivery. They just started it. I don't know if you guys have read about it, but Costco just started a grocery delivery program, and that's another thing that's going to tie in. That's really, I think, the future of where things are going in terms of food. You had a question.
Yeah, we're really proud, of course, that you put the Cocoa Horizons logo on your package, but what went into that decision as you're sitting around the conference room table? Like, what made you want to?
Well, we knew we wanted to pick. We actually did our research among all the organizations, and we did. We had our whole marketing team on it. They really focused on figuring out what the best one was for us. And what we came down to was the amount of funding that is actually getting back to the farmer, and then the different programs. The women's agroforestry, we also supported. We also supported women this year who are becoming cocoa farmers, and that was really important for us as being entrepreneurs and women in business. So that program helped us make a decision as well. And then I would say because we already had worked with you and you had the relationship, and it is when you put something on pack like that too, you can't make a change, right? So when you're making a change, we're getting everything. It's a commitment because of the money that it costs to set up the bags and to print the packaging and then go to the retailers and sell it. You get them all to sign off. I mean, Seema knows how much.
I called him every day for a long time.
Every day, and we're like, oh, we need this.
Yeah, but I mean,
but
you were vested, and that was clear. Yeah.
Yep. So once we got there, I mean, there was a number of factors, but we were really proud of the partnership with Barry Callebaut and then the program itself too. What commitment you guys have helps us sell it into retailers easier. And examples, Fairtrade's probably more widely known, but I would say Fairtrade has as much criticism as it does, as it is, out there, on pack. And I think we'll have some. I felt like for a better fit for us is to jump on board with someone like Cocoa Horizons, and we appreciate you guys having the program that you did. So does that answer the question as well? Any other questions for us too about Costco or otherwise? We talk a lot about Costco. This is my life. I could write a book on Costco. I know. Yes.
Perhaps. So you've had this incredible journey as 5 years.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Well, it's interesting because we've talked a lot about this too in our family, and it's really on trend right now to grow your business and find a private equity company and get them to buy a portion of it, and then they can grow it more and then sell it to a strategic. And that is what a lot of the companies around us are doing. I mean, every day I'm opening and reading stories on how this company's
you know, Amplify is another snack company in our industry that just sold to Hershey today. And so we, though, you know, we appreciate the family heritage. We appreciate where we've come from and how the hard work that it was that we put in and our generations before us put in to get here. So we like being like the old fashioned, where the business side of it, where we're just going to grow this business and we're going to do it year after year and see where it goes and create great products and kind of develop the brands that are a part of our company. And I don't, you know, so as we get, I do see us having a much bigger voice someday as we grow and buy more cocoa and having a much better, bigger voice with Mark leading the charge on sustainability. And then I see us having continuing to put out really good products and competing with the big companies, Lindt and Ghirardelli and Hershey, as they bring on, and Mars as they bring on more snackfection type products. I mean, that's really big in the industry right now, and everybody coining this term snackfection. So I think Snappers was one of the first ones that really that was on the front end of that 5 years ago. So and here we are 5 years later, and it's really that is no sign of slowing down. So we're going to continue to grow it. We're going to, and then again with our own retail, I think we will continue to open milkshake factories. And you know,
Do you need like taste testers for Chicago market?
Yes. We're in the process right now. We haven't told anybody yet, but we're in the process right now of developing our own ice cream. So we're looking into manufacturing ice cream as well for the milkshake factories, because we actually, the interesting thing about the milkshake factories, we probably go through more ice cream per year than any other single ice cream store. I mean, we're talking Baskin Robbins, Häagen-Dazs, anywhere. The milkshake factory has a line out the door almost every day. I mean, we can go through our top day, we'll go through 6,000 milkshakes in a day. I mean, it's like crazy how much, you know, that's like the busiest day of the year when we have on the milkshake. So there's a lot of potential there for the milkshake factory too, and there's the whole chocolate component to the milkshake factory. So we have chocolate and milkshakes. It's like a full dessert experience when you come there. So to answer your question, it's family business, we're family run. We're just going to keep growing it and see where it goes. I feel like we built a really good team to help us get there. So, awesome. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay.
Yes.
You might have answered this already with your snack section, but what are some of the other consumer trends that you're seeing, and how are you responding to them?
Yeah, I would say, Mark, and you can jump in too, but I think snackfection is probably the biggest that we've been seeing. I do think I think there might be, people are going to quickly get so heavy into the snacks. I mean, that's where.
It's pretty much whatever we put out is. That's what we'll just go with.
I know. No, but he's right in the sense where the things need, like even our coconut almonds, there's like small little almond joys. That's what everybody compares them to. And, you know, because people kind of know that it's like a gourmet almond joy, but what's about that is it's just snackable, it's poppable, and that's really the biggest trend that's happened in the industry, and where in the U.S. rather than probably in Europe and other regions where, you know, it's much more about the box chocolate still, or finer chocolates and things. And then in Asia, I think is the biggest market. I think I'm a huge. I always talk about our products going to Asia before anywhere else. I think Europe for us is saturated. I think Middle East is secondary to Asia. I think Asia has the most potential between Japan and China and Korea, what they have there and where the tastes are changing over in those regions. I think they're also looking for smaller snackable. That's why minis would do well there, even though caramel's not big there right now, because it's just something that they're not used that when we're looking at like the Japanese, they're not used to eating something chewy like that. They want more of the of small bite size, like the pretzels would do well covered in chocolate. But as soon as you add the caramel element into it, it changes. Like they're not used to that. So it's changing though, it's shifting. So we're gonna look at, and that's why the coconut almonds do very well. So coconut almonds just delivered to Taiwan. We also are in Australia now too. So with the snappers, so there's a lot of you know, when we're looking at trends, I think in the U.S. it's really snackfection and also bite size, poppable. It's more snackable, consumer friendly products.
And also, you know, not just traceability, but just transparency into the supply chain itself. And that's one benefit to having a sustainability component to everything, is just knowing exactly where it comes from and letting everybody know that, right? And so, for the milkshake factory, for example, we switched our dairy to a local dairy, a local farm, local dairy, local ice cream manufacturer and co-backer, and then so it basically allows the customer to see which cow made their milk and their milk. And it really is that.
Like the cows have names, Charlotte, Jelly Bean, like they're all. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be able to trace exactly where we're completely transparent, and that's something that's really important too. So when you see that's why the sustainability side of it is so important. But what Mark's saying is exactly right. You know, traceability. We're 60.
I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down.
But Mark, Megan, you were videoing this.
So the Snappers has about a 60% of our customers are millennials for Snappers. That's something that's really important to us because it's the next generation and it's the younger generations, and that's something that they're really traceability, snackability. Those would be. Anything else? Okay, thank you guys.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I think your hair's so nice.
Well, thank you. Before everyone runs to try to beat Steve to the coconut almonds, we have a little bar here. Edward Mark was gracious enough to send us a ton of product for today. So we have a little bar here and a little bar in the cafe. So please help yourself as you go back to your desks. We are going to take one quick group picture before we go. So if you guys don't mind, we'll take a photo and then.
Did you get the small bags?
I do. They're in the.
We have 1.2 ounce bags for everybody.
Yeah, so they brought a little Snappers bag for everyone. So they're in the cafe. Grab one, but also take a plate of everything you see here. So we'll take a quick photo and then that's it.
Three.